The greatest secrets of history are written in stone and silence. For centuries, our most advanced science has probed the ancient world, yet profound mysteries remain stubbornly unresolved. This journey explores 25 timeless questions about antiquity that continue to defy explanation. You will gain a new perspective on human history, seeing our past not as a solved puzzle, but as a living conversation between discovery and wonder. We will examine how an entire Bronze Age civilization vanished almost overnight, and why a medieval book written in an unbreakable code still mocks modern scholars. What do you believe is the most important lesson these lost worlds have left for us? A timeless mystery is more than just an unanswered question. It is a doorway that refuses to close, beckoning us because it asks something fundamental about who we are. These puzzles endure not for a lack of evidence, but because every potential answer reveals a deeper layer of wonder. They sit at a fascinating crossroads where hard science meets human story, where the meticulous work of an archaeologist brushing away dust must converse with the grand theories of an astronomer charting ancient skies. To confront them, we cannot rely on old tools alone. Our drive to understand has pushed us to invent new ways of seeing, from lasers that can map entire lost cities beneath jungle canopies to techniques that can trace a single copper ingot back to its mountain source. This relentless curiosity, this need to piece together the grand narrative of our shared past, is what transforms a historical footnote into a timeless enigma. And few enigmas are as visually stunning or as perplexing as the first on our journey, a silent monument that has gazed at the stars for. A mountain of stone rises from the desert, its four faces aligned with the cardinal directions with a precision that defies its age. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not merely a tomb. It is a statement carved in 2.3 million blocks of limestone and granite, a statement that has echoed for 4,500 years. How did a society without the wheel, iron tools, or modern machinery accomplish this? The true mystery lies not in a single lost secret, but in the breathtaking orchestration of knowledge, labor, and belief on a scale that still feels unimaginable. The logistics alone are staggering. Quarries were miles away. Some blocks weighed more than 70 tons, and every piece had to be lifted, one after another, to a height of nearly 500 feet. Mainstream archaeology, led by decades of excavation by experts like Mark, paints a compelling picture of a highly organized, state-run project. Evidence suggests a rotating workforce of thousands who were well-fed and housed in nearby barracks. The most widely accepted theory involves a massive, zigzagging ramp system built directly against the pyramid's side, a spiraling roadway of earth and brick that grew with the monument itself. Workers would have hauled the blocks on sledges, possibly lubricating the paths with water to reduce friction. Yet, even this explanation leaves room for awe and for unanswered questions. How were the enormous granite beams for the king's chamber, sourced from over 500 miles away, raised into place? The precision of the structure is another layer of the puzzle. The pyramid's base is level to within an inch, and its sides are aligned to true north with a minuscule error margin, suggesting profound astronomical knowledge. This level of perfection fuels alternative ideas, from theories about a lost method for softening and molding stone to more speculative notions involving sound or levitation. While these capture the imagination, modern science is providing new, tangible clues. In 2023, scientists using cosmic ray muon radiography, a technique that peers through stone like a medical scan, discovered a hidden corridor deep within the pyramid's bulk. This find proves that even after centuries of study, the structure still holds secrets waiting for non-invasive technology to reveal. If we discovered the builder's complete manual tomorrow, what would it reveal? It would likely show a society of astonishing administrative skill, where geometry, astronomy, and sheer human will were fused into a single purpose. This monumental achievement, so clear in its construction yet debated in its methods, leads us to another ancient wonder whose very purpose remains an open question, a structure that served not the dead, but perhaps the living and the celestial. While the pyramids were a permanent statement of eternity, another ancient monument speaks in the language of cycles, of seasons turning and skies measured. On the windswept Salisbury Plain, the great sarsen stones of Stonehenge stand in a circle that has captured the human imagination for over 4,500 years. Its true purpose remains one of history's most captivating riddles. Was it a prehistoric astronomical calculator, a temple for the sun, a place of healing, or a unifying ceremonial center for scattered communities? The answer is likely all of these and more, a purpose that evolved across more than 1,500 years of construction and use. This was not a single project with a single goal, but a living part of the landscape that grew and changed meaning with the generations who gathered there. Archaeologists like Mike Parker have transformed our understanding by looking beyond the circle itself. Stonehenge is not an isolated wonder, but the heart of a vast ritual landscape. It is connected by ancient avenues to the river Avon and surrounded by hundreds of burial mounds, suggesting it was a focal point for ceremonies of remembrance and passage. The recent analysis of cremated remains found at the site tells a profound story of pilgrimage. Chemical signatures in the bones reveal that some of the individuals buried there traveled from distant regions, like the mountains of Western Wales, to reach this sacred ground. This was a destination, a place so significant that people undertook arduous journeys, perhaps carrying their lost loved ones to be part of its story. The architecture itself whispers clues about its functions. The alignment is undeniable, as the sun rises directly over the heel stone on the summer solstice, flooding the center of the circle with light. This precise orientation suggests deep observational knowledge of the solar cycle, turning the structure into a colossal calendar marking the year's pivotal moments. But the stones may have been chosen for more than their size and durability. The smaller blue stones, transported over 140 miles from the hills in Wales, have unique properties. Some researchers propose these stones were believed to have healing or magical qualities, their distinct bluish hue and crystalline structure making them sacred. Intriguingly, experiments have shown the monument possesses remarkable acoustic properties, the standing stones creating echoes and reverberations that could have transformed chants or drumbeats into an immersive, otherworldly experience. The sheer effort of its construction points to a society capable of extraordinary coordination. Moving the multi-ton sarsens from local quarries and the bluestones from across a country required not just manpower, but a shared belief powerful enough to motivate that labor for centuries. Stonehenge may have served as a grand social glue, a neutral and awe-inspiring place where different groups from across Britain could gather, exchange goods, forge alliances, and participate in shared rituals that reinforced their connection to the cosmos and to each other. So does understanding Stonehenge require us to think in a way unfamiliar to the modern mind. Perhaps it asks us to see a world where astronomy, community, spirituality, and memory were not separate categories, but threads woven into a single, monumental tapestry. This idea of ancient timekeeping, of reading celestial events in stone, leads us to consider a far more dramatic and global proposal, a theory that a cataclysm from the heavens might be frozen in the geological record, serving as a catastrophic calendar for our entire planet. The stability of a world can be measured in the thin layers of earth that separate one era from the next. In the eastern Mediterranean around 1200 BCE, that layer is not soil, but ash. This was the vibrant, interconnected world of the late Bronze Age, a network of grand empires like the Hittites in Anatolia, the Mycenaeans in Greece, and the New Kingdom of Egypt, all linked by diplomacy, shared languages, and flourishing trade routes that carried tin, copper, and luxury goods. Then, within the span of a few generations, it all came apart. Great cities from Greece to the Levant were burned and abandoned, complex writing systems like Linear B were forgotten, and international trade ground to a halt, plunging the region into a centuries-long dark age. The sheer speed and scale of this collapse, affecting multiple powerful states simultaneously, presents one of history's most compelling detective stories. What could cause such a widespread systemic failure? Historians like Klein describe it not as a single event, but a perfect storm of crises that overwhelmed the resilience of these interconnected societies. The evidence is etched into the landscape and preserved in time capsules like the shipwreck, a trading vessel that sank off the coast of Turkey with a stunning cargo of international goods, a snapshot of a globalized world that was about to vanish. One primary suspect is a prolonged period of climate change. Scientific studies of ancient pollen cores from the region show a dramatic shift toward drier conditions right at this time. This drought would have led to consecutive crop failures, famine, and the desperate movement of populations searching for sustenance. These environmental pressures likely ignited internal rebellions as starving citizens turned against ruling elites who could no longer provide food or security. At the same time, the ancient world shuddered with seismic activity, with evidence of earthquakes leveling key cities at this precise moment. Into this volatile mix sailed the enigmatic Sea Peoples, a confederation of raiders and migrants documented in Egyptian inscriptions as causing widespread havoc. Were they a cause of the collapse or a symptom of it? Displaced groups from the crumbling north pushed southward by the same famine and instability. Their attacks further severed the critical trade networks that were the lifeblood of these empires. Tin from Afghanistan and copper from Cyprus stopped flowing, crippling the bronze production essential for tools and weapons. This technological disruption itself may have played a role, as the gradual spread of ironworking knowledge began to undermine the economic and military monopoly of the bronze-using elites. We can see the collapse in specific, haunting places. The great Hittite capital was meticulously abandoned, its gates left open. The wealthy port city of Ugarit on the Syrian coast sent a desperate final letter to the king of Cyprus, stating, "The enemy ships are already here, they have set fire to my city and done great damage." The letter was never sent, found in its kiln, baked for preservation by the very fires that destroyed the city. This moment forces a reflective question for our own time. In an era of deeply linked global supply chains, climate stress, and social instability, does the story of the late Bronze Age collapse serve as a profound cautionary tale about the hidden fragility of complex systems? As that old world order crumbled, another sophisticated society, isolated on a remote and beautiful island, was meeting its own inexplicable end. Across the wine-dark sea from the collapsing Bronze Age empires, a different kind of civilization flourished in splendid isolation. On the island of Crete, the Minoans built Europe's first advanced society, a maritime power whose palaces were adorned with breathtaking frescoes of dolphins and saffron gatherers, not scenes of war. Their capital at Knossos, with its complex multi-story layout and intricate plumbing, feels less like a fortress and more like a vibrant cultural center. This apparent peacefulness is one of their greatest puzzles, as their settlements show a notable lack of defensive walls. For centuries, they thrived, mastering trade across the Mediterranean and developing their own undeciphered writing system. Linear A then, around 3,500 years ago, their brilliant world dimmed and transformed. The question is not simply one of a vanished people, but of how a sophisticated culture could be so profoundly altered. The most dramatic explanation points to the heavens, or rather, to the Earth's fury. On the island of Thera, 100 kilometers north of Crete, a volcano of staggering power erupted. This was not a mere event. It was a cataclysm that reshaped the island into the broken ring we see today as Santorini. The scale is almost incomprehensible, estimated to be many times more powerful than the eruption of Krakatoa. The immediate effects on Crete would have been apocalyptic. First, colossal tsunamis, waves perhaps dozens of meters high, would have scoured the northern coast of Crete, devastating the Minoan fleet and ports that were the source of their wealth and security. Then, A blanket of volcanic ash would have smothered the island's fertile farmland, leading to years of crop failure and famine. Beyond the immediate physical destruction, the eruption could have triggered a volcanic winter, cooling the climate across the region for years and disrupting the agricultural cycles the entire society depended upon. Archaeologists find layers of this distinctive Thera pumice and ash in Minoan settlements, a grim timestamp linking the two events. Yet, the story is likely more complex than a single natural disaster. The volcanic eruption occurred around 1600 BCE, but the definitive end of distinct Minoan culture came roughly 150 years later, around 1450 BCE. This gap suggests the eruption was a devastating blow, but not necessarily a final knockout punch. It may have critically weakened the society, making it vulnerable to other forces. Enter the Mycenaeans from mainland Greece, a more warlike culture whose fortified palaces stand in stark contrast to the open design of Knossos. In the archaeological record, we see a telling shift. After 1450 BCE, Linear A disappears. In its place, at sites like Knossos, we find tablets written in Linear B, an early form of Greek used by the Mycenaeans. The architecture changes too, with new styles and artifacts appearing that are distinctly Mycenaean. This evidence strongly suggests a takeover, whether through conquest, political marriage, or a gradual cultural absorption of a weakened neighbor. Perhaps the most enduring Minoan legacy is not in their end, but in the vibrant spirit they left behind. Their art captures a world seemingly in harmony with nature, focused on ceremony and grace. The famous bull-leaping frescoes may depict a ritual sport, a daring dance with a sacred animal that speaks to a deep, symbolic worldview. Their sophisticated plumbing and light wells show a keen attention to comfort and community living. So, was their demise a sudden catastrophe or a slow decline? The most compelling answer is a tragic synergy. The Thera eruption delivered a profound shock to the system, crippling their economy and food supply. This internal vulnerability then allowed external forces, in the form of Mycenaean influence or outright control, to fill the power vacuum. The Minoans did not vanish without a trace. Their artistic motifs and maritime knowledge flowed into the Mycenaean world and beyond, a subtle undercurrent in the stream of history. From the sun-drenched ruins of the Mediterranean, our search for lost civilizations carries us to a much colder and more remote mystery, where towering stone faces gaze inland from a barren shore. Their stone backs are forever turned to the endless Pacific, their solemn faces gazing inland across a landscape they helped define. On the most isolated inhabited island on Earth stand the nearly 1,000 stone giants whose creation and transportation is a staggering testament to human will. How a society with no metal, no wheels, and no large animals moved statues weighing up to 80 tons across miles of rugged terrain is a puzzle that marries physics with profound cultural belief. For the people, these were not mere monuments, they were sacred vessels, the living faces of ancestors who watched over their descendants. The investment was immense, with generations dedicating their labor and ingenuity to this single, unifying purpose. The quarry at the volcanic crater of tells a story frozen in time, where almost half of all remain in various stages of completion, still embedded in the rock face as if the workers simply paused and walked away. This site was a factory of faith, where master carvers used only stone hand tools to patiently shape the soft volcanic tuff, a process that could take a team a full year for a single statue. Once freed, the real challenge began. For decades, the dominant theory involved a massive logistical operation, laying the flat on a wooden sled or atop rollers made from felled palm trees and hauling them slowly over lubricated tracks. This method seemed logical, but it raised difficult questions about the island's limited timber resources. Then, a compelling and elegant alternative emerged from researchers like archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl. They proposed a method that seems almost like a ritual dance. The statues were moved upright. In their walking theory, teams used a system of ropes to rock them from side to side, pivoting it forward with each tilt in a controlled, swaying gait. The physics are surprisingly sound. The statue's own weight and center of gravity, combined with a carved base that is subtly convex, allow it to be tipped and guided with coordinated effort from a relatively small group. This was dramatically demonstrated in a 2012 experiment by National Geographic, which successfully walked a full-sized concrete replica across open ground. The method is not only efficient, but also deeply symbolic, evoking the idea of the ancestors themselves walking across the land to their final platforms, the Ahu. Once erected, the final touch was a separate cylindrical topknot of red scoria stone that could weigh over 10 tons. Placing these atop the already standing represents another breathtaking feat of engineering, likely involving ramps of earth and stone to raise them incrementally into position. The story of however, is inextricably linked to the story of the island's environment. Scientific evidence suggests that the island's famous deforestation, once blamed entirely on reckless statue construction, was a more complex process involving the arrival of invasive species like the Polynesian rat, which prevented forest regeneration. This ecological shift, combined with the societal focus on the cult, may have contributed to periods of hardship. Yet the enduring legacy is one of breathtaking ingenuity. The solution to moving the likely lies in that combination of clever physics and perfectly coordinated human effort, a testament to what an isolated culture can achieve when united by a powerful shared vision. It reveals a society that was not blindly destroying its world, but dynamically engaging with it, solving immense physical problems through collective action and deep spiritual belief. This mastery over stone on an island scale makes one wonder about the ambition of cultures that sought to reshape not just monuments, but entire continents, leaving marks so vast they can only be seen from the sky. High above the arid plains of southern Peru, the earth itself transforms into a gallery of impossible scale. Etched into the dark desert pavement are hundreds of geometric shapes and intricate animal figures so vast they can only be comprehended from the sky. The lines, created between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after, present a riddle of purpose that has fueled speculation for generations. Why would a people, the culture, invest such immense effort in creating art they could never fully see? The answer lies not in alien architects, but in a profound and practical relationship between a society and its harsh, beautiful world. They were masters of survival in an unforgiving landscape. Their sophisticated underground aqueducts, tapped into subterranean water sources, demonstrating a deep understanding of the desert's hidden hydrology. This intimate knowledge of water, the most precious resource in a land where rain might fall only once a decade, is the key that unlocks the meaning of the lines for many archaeologists. Researcher has long argued that they were part of a grand ritual landscape dedicated to water worship and fertility. The process of their creation was itself a form of prayer. Workers carefully removed the top layer of dark, sun-baked stones to reveal the lighter, sandy soil beneath, creating stark, enduring contrasts. The forms they made fall into clear categories. There are long, arrow-straight lines that run for miles across the pampa, enormous trapezoids and triangles that seem to point toward distant mountains or water sources, and the famous biomorphs, the stylized depictions of animals like the hummingbird, the spider, and the monkey. These figures are not random. Many of the animals are associated with water in Andean cosmology. The monkey, for instance, is a creature of the lush Amazon rainforest to the east, a symbol of life-giving moisture. The straight lines and trapezoids may have functioned as ceremonial pathways. Imagine communities walking along these cleared avenues during rituals, their processions visible to the deities residing in the mountains, the sky, and the water sources the lines often point toward. Some alignments correspond with the position of the sun during solstices or the rise of certain star clusters, suggesting an astronomical component as well, a way of marking time and connecting celestial cycles to the hope for water and fertile harvests. The scale of this undertaking is constantly being revised upward. In recent years, using artificial intelligence to analyze aerial imagery and drones to survey difficult terrain, researchers have discovered over 140 new. These include humanoid figures and more complex designs, revealing that this ritual landscape was far more extensive and likely built over many centuries. This was not a single project, but a sustained cultural tradition. So, were the lines a form of communication with deities, a massive astronomical map, or a combination of both? They were likely all these things, reflecting a worldview where the practical need for water was inseparable from spiritual ceremony. The desert was not a blank slate to them, but a living, sacred space. By marking it, they were engaging in a dialogue with the forces that governed their survival, turning the entire pampa into a temple without walls. This act of shaping a landscape for spiritual purpose leads us from the open desert to a very different environment, where entire cities were not drawn upon the earth, but swallowed whole by the relentless green of the jungle. The silence of a Maya city is a profound and layered sound. It is not the quiet of a place never inhabited, but the heavy stillness of spaces once filled with the murmur of markets, the cadence of royal proclamations, and the echoes of ceremony. The grand plazas of Tikal, the elegant courtyards of, and the sculpted hieroglyphic stairway of, were not abandoned in a single, catastrophic exodus. Their story is one of a slow unraveling, a complex process of decentralization and migration that marks the transition from the classic Maya period, around 250 to 900 years after the Common Era, to what is often called the Maya collapse in the southern lowlands. This was not an end for the Maya people, but a dramatic transformation of their world. Understand it, we must listen to the evidence they left behind, not just in stone, but in mud and tree rings and the very words they carved into their monuments. Like David Stewart, who decipher Maya glyphs, have transformed history from legend into a detailed chronicle of kings, wars, alliances, and ultimately crises. The glyphs tell us of escalating conflicts between rival city-states, a shift from ritualized combat to total warfare aimed at the capture and humiliation of kings. At the same time, science reads a different record. Sediment cores from lake beds across the region act as a climatic diary, and they tell a story of severe, prolonged drought during the 9th and 10th centuries. This was not a single dry season, but a series of multi-decade that would have crippled the intensive maize agriculture that supported dense urban populations. Imagine the mounting pressure. A growing population, perhaps exceeding what the land could sustainably support even in good years, faced consecutive harvest failures. Deforestation for agriculture and the burning of limestone to make plaster for their magnificent buildings would have worsened local conditions, reducing rainfall through a loss of forest transpiration and increasing soil erosion. The ruling elite, whose power was based on their perceived ability to communicate with the gods and ensure rain and fertility, found their authority crumbling as the skies remained empty. The detailed records from are particularly telling. Inscriptions describe a dynasty in trouble, with succession disputes and a final king whose reign seems to have ended not with a monumental building project, but with silence. The last dated monument at the city was erected in 822, after which the royal palace was occupied by commoners, and the great Acropolis slowly began to be reclaimed by the forest. This suggests a possible socio-political revolution, a loss of faith in the system that directed massive labor toward glorifying kings while people went hungry. The result was not a disappearance, but a strategic retreat. People gradually left the great ceremonial centers, migrating toward coastal areas or regions with more reliable water sources, or dispersing into smaller, more sustainable communities. The brilliant cultural fluorescence of the classic period faded in the southern lowlands, but Maya civilization persisted and adapted in the north, in places like and later. So, does the Maya example show that even the most brilliant civilizations are vulnerable? It shows that their resilience is tested when environmental, political, and social systems become profoundly misaligned, when the contract between the people and their leaders, and between society and its environment, breaks under sustained stress. Their legacy is a powerful lesson in interconnectedness. While the Maya left a written record of their challenges, another ancient culture left behind a different kind of text, one that has resisted all modern attempts to read its secrets. A book exists that no one on Earth can read. Its pages, crafted from fine vellum in the early 15th century, are filled with looping, graceful characters from an alphabet found nowhere else, accompanying illustrations of plants that defy botany and astrological charts that puzzle astronomers. This is the manuscript, the world's most stubborn literary mystery, a lockbox of history for which the key has been lost for over 600 years. We know tantalizing fragments of its journey. Carbon dating places its creation between 1404 and 1438. It once resided in the library of Holy Roman Emperor II, who reportedly purchased it for 600 gold ducats, a king's ransom for an incomprehensible text. Later, it passed through the hands of alchemists and book dealers before vanishing for centuries, only to resurface in 1912, when a Polish book dealer named found it in a Jesuit college in Italy, giving the manuscript its modern name. From that moment, it became a siren call for the world's greatest codebreakers, including William and his team, who helped crack Japanese codes during the Second World War. They applied every tool of modern cryptanalysis, from frequency analysis to pattern recognition, yet the manuscript yielded nothing. The script itself is maddeningly consistent, showing the statistical patterns of a real language, with word lengths and character repetitions that feel meaningful, but it corresponds to no known tongue on Earth. The illustrations deepen the enigma. One section depicts unearthly herbal specimens with bulbous roots and fantastical leaves, possibly meant for a pharmacopoeia of imagined or symbolic plants. Another shows circular diagrams adorned with zodiacal symbols, but the constellations are strange, the arrangements unfamiliar. Most curious are the so-called biological sections, with pages of small, unclothed female figures bathing in or connected by intricate networks of tubes and vessels, which some interpret as allegorical representations of human physiology or spiritual transformation. The theories attempting to explain it are as varied as they are contested. Is it an encoded natural language, a meticulous cipher hiding a treatise on medieval medicine or early science? Is it a constructed language, a philosophical or artistic experiment in creating new meaning? Or, as some argue, is it an elaborate and brilliant hoax, perhaps created by himself to fabricate a valuable antiquity, though carbon dating now disputes that timeline? Recent claims of decipherment flare up periodically, like a 2019 study that proposed the text was written in a form of extinct proto-Romance. But such announcements are met with intense skepticism from linguists who find the proposed translations unconvincing. The manuscript's very resistance to solution is what makes it so compelling. It forces us to confront the edges of medieval knowledge. If it is genuine, what might its contents reveal? Could it be a record of esoteric, perhaps heretical, knowledge that its author deliberately shrouded in an unbreakable code? Or is it the private notebook of a thinker exploring ideas so far outside the mainstream that they invented a whole new way of writing to contain them? Its silence speaks volumes about the vast, undocumented margins of history, the thoughts and experiments that never made it into the official chronicles. From an indecipherable text, we turn to a city whose very name is a question mark, a metropolis of legend that was sought for centuries before being rediscovered in the most unexpected way. The search for a sunken world is one of humanity's oldest and most persistent dreams. For over 2,000 years, the story told by the philosopher Plato of a powerful, advanced island civilization called Atlantis, which sank beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune, has captivated explorers and theorists alike. This question stands at a fascinating crossroads, straddling the line between philosophy, geology, and archaeology. It asks not just if a place existed, but if a real, catastrophic event could have inspired one of history's most enduring moral parables. To understand the mystery, we must return to its source, the only ancient accounts we have. Plato introduces Atlantis in two of his dialogues, and written around 360 years before the Common Era. He presents it not as a recent discovery, but as a tale passed down from an Egyptian priest to the Athenian lawgiver Solon. In the story, Atlantis is a naval power lying beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a technologically sophisticated but morally corrupt empire that attempts to conquer the ancient world. It is ultimately defeated by the ideal city of Athens before being swallowed by the sea as punishment for its hubris. For many classicists, like Clay, this context is key. Atlantis appears as the antagonist in a philosophical story, a fictional device crafted by Plato to discuss the nature of ideal states, the corruption of power, and divine justice. It serves as a dramatic contrast to his vision of a virtuous Athens. Yet, the vividness of the description, complete with concentric rings of water and land, advanced engineering, and a precise timeline, has always begged another question. Could a kernel of truth lie within the allegory? This is where geology enters the conversation. Researchers like Stowe search for real geological events of sufficient scale and drama to have seeded such a legendary cataclysm. The most compelling candidate lies in the Mediterranean, an event we have already encountered. The colossal eruption of the Thera volcano around 1600 BCE, which devastated the Minoan civilization on Crete, fits several criteria. It was a sudden, apocalyptic event for nearby islands, potentially generating tsunamis that could have washed over coastal settlements, creating a cultural memory of an advanced culture punished by the sea. Other theories point to a massive tsunami event in the region of the Strait of Gibraltar, where Plato located Atlantis, or to the gradual submergence of coastal landscapes as sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age. This last point is powerfully illustrated by a real discovery in the North Sea. Was a vast, fertile landmass that connected Britain to mainland Europe until it was slowly inundated by rising seas between 8,000 and 5,500 years ago. Fishermen in the area have dragged up prehistoric tools and mammoth bones from the seabed for centuries, and modern underwater archaeology is now mapping its sunken hills and river valleys. Proves that entire worlds, home to communities can indeed be lost to the waves, their stories preserved only in fragmentary legend. The sheer number of proposed locations for Atlantis, from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, and its adoption by later esoteric traditions, speaks to its power as a blank canvas. It becomes a symbol for a lost golden age, a forgotten source of ancient wisdom, or a warning from the past. So does the endless search for Atlantis reveal more about us than about history? Perhaps it speaks to a deep human desire to find a physical anchor for our myths, to believe that a pinnacle of achievement once existed, was lost, and is waiting to be rediscovered. It is a story that marries our fear of cataclysm with a nostalgia for a more advanced beginning. This longing to find meaning and alignment in the past draws our gaze from a hypothetical sunken continent to a very real and precisely aligned city, one that seems to mirror the heavens themselves on the ground below. A disk of bronze, inlaid with gold, captures the cosmos in a handheld artifact. The Sky Disk, discovered in Germany and dated to around 1600 years before the Common Era, is the oldest known concrete depiction of the night sky. It shows a cluster of stars, a crescent moon, a full moon or sun, and graceful arcs along its edges representing the horizon. This was not mere decoration. It was a functional instrument, a portable calculator for synchronizing the lunar and solar calendars, crucial for knowing when to plant and when to harvest. Its existence shatters the simplistic notion of ancient stargazers as merely superstitious, revealing instead a tradition of precise, purposeful observation that span the globe. This 10th question asks how these civilizations, without lenses or precise clocks, developed such an advanced understanding of celestial motion. The answer lies in a profound partnership between survival, spirituality, and sheer intellectual curiosity, where watching the sky was as fundamental as watching the fields. The impulse was universal and deeply practical. Knowing the sun's path meant predicting seasons, the foundation of agriculture. The moon's phases provided a reliable, visible calendar. For maritime cultures like the Polynesians, navigating by the stars was the only way to traverse the vast, featureless Pacific. They memorized the rising and setting points of specific stars, the paths of migratory birds, and the patterns of ocean swells, weaving celestial knowledge into a mental map that could guide a canoe across thousands of miles of open ocean. This practical need naturally evolved into more complex systems. Structures became both temples and observatories. In Ireland, the Passage Tomb built over 5,000 years ago, is a masterpiece of solar alignment. For a few days around the winter solstice, the darkest time of the year, a narrow beam of sunlight penetrates the long entrance passage and illuminates the inner chamber for approximately 17 minutes. This was not an accident, but a deliberate, engineered moment of hope, connecting the realm of the ancestors with the promise of the sun's return. Like Clive, study this precise intersection of ancient structures and the sky. Their work shows that these alignments required generations of patient, naked-eye observation. They used horizon markers, noting where the sun or a bright star rose or set against a distant mountain notch or a specially placed stone. From this data, they built calendars of astonishing accuracy. The Maya, for instance, tracked the cycles of Venus with meticulous care, creating tables that could predict its appearances as the morning or evening star for centuries into the future. Their observatory at the features narrow windows aligned to the extreme positions of Venus on the horizon. Their calendar system was so refined it could pinpoint dates thousands of years in the past or future, anchoring royal power in a framework of cosmic time. Perhaps the most astonishing artifact of ancient technical astronomy is the mechanism. Recovered from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, this corroded bronze device from the 2nd or 1st century before the Common Era has been called the world's first analog computer. Advanced imaging has revealed a complex system of interlocking gears that could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets, track the cycles of athletic games like the Olympics, and even account for irregularities in the moon's orbit. It represents a pinnacle of Greek astronomical and engineering knowledge, a technology that would not be seen again for over 1,000 years. Similarly, the Great Pyramid's alignment to true north with such minute error suggests the Egyptians used star transits, possibly tracking the circumpolar stars to find the celestial pole. In North America, at Canyon, a different kind of instrument used the landscape itself. At Butte, a spiral petroglyph is bisected by a dagger of sunlight at noon on the summer solstice. As the year progresses, the light dagger moves, marking the equinoxes and other key solar and lunar standstills. This sun dagger is a permanent, public calendar etched in light and shadow, demonstrating how celestial knowledge was integrated into the very rock of a sacred space. So, was this science, religion, or politics? It was likely inseparable. A king who could predict an eclipse or proclaim the correct day for a planting festival wielded immense power, his authority literally written in the stars. The astronomical knowledge provided real, practical benefits for society, while also reinforcing a cosmological order that placed the ruler and the community within the grand, predictable cycles of the universe. Their monuments were not just aligned to the heavens, they were conversations with them, attempts to harmonize human life with the majestic and dependable rhythms of the cosmos. This deep connection to celestial order makes the abrupt, chaotic end of certain cultures all the more puzzling, leading us to a civilization whose collapse seems written in the very trees they left behind. the sea floor can be a museum of the most unexpected kind. In the spring of 1901, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of were forced to shelter from a storm. When they dove the next day, they found the scattered remains of a Roman-era cargo ship, a treasure trove of statues and artifacts from the 1st century before the Common Era. Among the marble and pottery, they retrieved a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed utterly unremarkable, a piece of junk destined for a museum storage shelf. Decades would pass before anyone realized this nondescript object was arguably the most important scientific artifact ever recovered from the ancient world. The mechanism, as it became known, is a sophisticated astronomical calculator, a device of such intricate mechanical genius that it fundamentally rewrote our understanding of ancient technological capability. Its very existence poses a thrilling question. What was the true function of this 2,000-year-old machine, and what does its lonely survival tell us about the lost heights of Hellenistic science? For over a century, researchers have painstakingly peeled back the layers of corrosion, both physical and historical. Early X-rays in the 1970s revealed a stunning complexity of gears, but it was the advent of advanced three-dimensional X-ray tomography in the early 2000s, led by the International Mechanism Research Project, that finally allowed us to read its secrets. The scans acted as a digital key, letting scientists see inside the calcified mass without destroying it, mapping the precise arrangement of at least 30 interlocking bronze gear wheels, some with teeth finer than a millimeter. The inscriptions on its casing and dials, once thought indecipherable, were revealed to be a detailed user manual, explaining the device's functions in elegant Greek text. This was not a toy or a decorative piece. It was a serious scientific instrument. Its primary purpose was to model the cosmos. On the front, a large dial displayed the Greek zodiac and the Egyptian calendar year. Pointers showed the positions of the Sun, the Moon, and likely the 5 known planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, as they moved through the heavens. A beautiful silver and black ball even depicted the Moon's changing phases. This made it an orrery, a moving model of the solar system, but it was far more than that. By turning a hand crank on the side, an operator could advance or rewind time, watching the celestial dance play out and predicting future astronomical events with remarkable accuracy. The back of the device featured 2 large spiral dials. One was a 19-year Metonic calendar, correlating lunar months with the solar year, crucial for setting religious festivals. The other was a Saros dial, a 223-month cycle used to predict eclipses, even noting which eclipses might be lunar or solar, and their likely time of day. A smaller subsidiary dial tracked the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Athletic Games, including the Olympics, turning the mechanism into a comprehensive civic and religious planner as well. The engineering inside is what truly stuns the modern mind. The device employs a differential gear, a complex arrangement that calculates the difference between 2 rotational inputs to produce a correct output. This technology was previously thought to have been invented in the 16th century for use in automobiles over a millennium and a half later. The mechanism's makers used it to account for the Moon's subtle irregular orbit, a phenomenon known as the first lunar anomaly. The painstaking digital reconstructions by researchers like Tony and his team allow us to see the device as it once was, a gleaming bronze masterpiece housed in a wooden case, its dials turning in perfect harmony to mirror the universe itself. It represents a pinnacle of Greek astronomy, mathematics, and metalworking, a technology that hints at a whole school of mechanical science mentioned in fragmentary texts, but lost in the fires of the Library of Alexandria and the collapse of the ancient world. So, what does this one surviving device imply? It stands as a powerful testament to a path not taken, a high watermark of analog computation that vanished for centuries. If such a sophisticated machine was being shipped across the Mediterranean, was it unique? or was it one of many? The writings of Cicero mention a similar device built by Archimedes, and it is likely the mechanism was the product of a known tradition of craftsmanship and scholarship. Its lonely survival forces a humbling reflection. How many other marvels of ancient engineering have been melted down for scrap, lost to decay, or still lie undiscovered on the ocean floor, their secrets dissolved by salt and time? This single artifact proves that the ancient world's capacity for innovation was far greater than we often assume, a mechanical genius that would not be matched again until the clockwork cathedrals of the European Renaissance. From this intricate machine of bronze and ambition, we turn to a force of nature so small it is invisible, yet it has repeatedly reshaped the course of human civilization on a global scale. The intricate gears of the mechanism modeled a predictable, clockwork cosmos, but history is often shaped by forces far more chaotic and invisible. In the 6th century, at the very height of the Roman Empire's continuation in the East, an unseen passenger arrived in the bustling harbor of Constantinople. What followed was not a celestial alignment, but a demographic cataclysm known as the Plague of Justinian. This pandemic did not merely sweep through cities, it arguably bent the arc of history itself, and its origins and full impact are a puzzle written in both ancient texts and modern DNA. The scene in the capital was one of unimaginable strain. The historian, an eyewitness, described a city brought to its knees, with illness spreading so quickly that the customary rites for the deceased were abandoned. The scale of the loss was so vast it challenged the administration's ability to respond, a sobering reminder of how even the most powerful societies can be vulnerable to microscopic threats. For centuries, the true culprit was a subject of debate, until a revolutionary scientific technique provided definitive proof. Acting as molecular archaeologists, extracted minute traces of bacterial DNA from the teeth of individuals buried in that era. The genetic signature was unmistakable: pestis, the same bacterium responsible for the later Black Death. This confirmation from ancient remains transformed the study from historical speculation into a precise scientific investigation. The question then became, where did it come from and how did it travel? Genetic sequencing of these ancient plague strains points to an origin likely in Central Asia. The pandemic's timing was not random. It coincided with a period of intense connectivity along the Silk Road and other trade networks. Infected rodents and the fleas they carried could have stowed away in grain shipments or on caravans, moving from hinterland reservoirs into the heart of the empire. Climate science adds another critical layer. Tree ring data and ice core records suggest the mid-6th century experienced a period of significant global cooling, possibly triggered by a series of major volcanic eruptions. This climatic shift would have led to crop failures and famine, weakening human populations and potentially disrupting rodent ecosystems, pushing both animals and germs into closer contact with human settlements. The consequences were profound and far-reaching. Modern estimates, though debated, suggest between 25% and 50% of the population in the Mediterranean basin may have been lost. This staggering depopulation had cascading effects. The Byzantine Empire under Justinian had been in a phase of ambitious reconquest, aiming to reclaim lost Western territories. The plague crippled its tax base and military manpower, fatally undermining these efforts and leaving the empire permanently weakened, less able to respond to later pressures. This power vacuum in the eastern Mediterranean arguably created conditions that facilitated the rapid expansion of new political forces in the following century. The pandemic serves as a powerful case study in the complex interplay between environment, human movement, and biological evolution. A 2022 study elegantly linked the outbreak's chronology to volcanic-induced cooling, showing how a geological event could ripple through ecosystems and into human history. This deep past interaction raises a reflective question for our interconnected present. How do ancient pandemics remind us of the constant, fragile dance between human societies and the microbial world? They demonstrate that our fate is often tied to global networks we create and environmental balances we depend upon, a lesson written in the silent genetic code of a bacterium from 1500 years ago. From a microscopic agent of historical change, we shift our focus to a monumental and silent witness, a stone head of such immense scale it seems to speak of a forgotten giant. Their sheer physical presence is an act of power carved in stone. In the swampy lowlands of Mexico's Gulf Coast, 17 colossal heads of basalt stare out with an impassive, timeless gaze. Each one is a portrait in the monumental, some standing nearly 10 feet tall and weighing as much as 24 tons. These are the masterworks of the Olmec civilization, a culture so foundational to that scholars often call it the mother culture, flourishing from around 1400 to 400 years before the Common Era. The Olmecs established the artistic, architectural, and religious templates that would later be elaborated by the Maya, the Zapotecs, and the Aztecs. But of all their legacies, the colossal heads remain their most iconic and enigmatic calling card. Who do they depict, and what does the staggering effort to create them reveal about this pioneering society? Archaeologist, who has led extensive work at the major Olmec Center of San, argues persuasively that each head is a portrait of a specific, powerful ruler. Look closely, and you see individuality in the broad noses, the full lips, and the distinct expressions. Each figure wears a protective helmet, often intricately carved with symbols, leading to theories that these were portraits of revered ball players, mighty warriors, or shaman kings who mediated between the human and spiritual worlds. The helmets themselves are not military gear, but likely ritual headdresses, marking the subject's high status and perhaps a specific role in the sacred, a central ritual across cultures. The story of their creation is a testament to Olmec engineering and organization. The stone itself, volcanic basalt, was from the mountains, over 100 kilometers away from the main ceremonial centers like San and La Venta. Imagine the coordination required. Without the wheel, metal tools, or large draft animals like horses or oxen, Olmec workers would have transported these multi-ton boulders across rivers, through swamps, and over rugged terrain. The most likely method involved a combination of log rollers, rope, and immense human labor, possibly floating the stones on rafts along rivers for part of the journey. Once at the site, master sculptors, using only harder stone tools and abrasives, would have painstakingly pecked and ground the basalt into these refined, solemn faces, a process that could take a team many years. The societal implication is profound. Commissioning and creating a single head would have required control over a large, coordinated workforce and access to distant resources. This speaks to a highly stratified society with a powerful elite capable of commanding such labor for what was essentially a permanent monument to their own authority. The heads were not hidden away, but placed prominently in ceremonial precincts, perhaps lining avenues or plazas where they could oversee rituals. Their discovery also reveals complex ceremonial behavior. At San, archaeologists found that several heads, including the imposing head 10, had been carefully and deliberately buried in long, orderly lines alongside other stone monuments. This was not disposal, but a ritual act of retirement or veneration, suggesting these portraits retained their sacred power long after the ruler's passing. So, do these stone giants celebrate individual ego or collective identity? They likely do both. They immortalize specific leaders, yes, but in doing so, they also manifest the collective strength, devotion, and shared belief system of the entire society that made them possible. The head was not just a portrait, it was a permanent anchor for the community's memory and a stone declaration of its unity and capability. This Olmec fascination with materializing power and myth in tangible form leads our curiosity toward a legendary city that represents the ultimate symbol of such desire. a place where myth and material ambition were said to merge into streets paved with gold. Gold is a metal that can distort vision as powerfully as it reflects light. The story of El Dorado is not a simple tale of a lost city, but a profound collision between a vibrant indigenous ritual and a conquering imagination consumed by greed. This 14th question asks if El Dorado was a real place, and the answer reveals a tragic alchemy where cultural truth was transmuted into a destructive fantasy. At its heart lies a genuine and sacred ceremony practiced by the people in the highlands of modern Colombia. When a new leader, or was to ascend, a ritual of immense spiritual significance took place at Lake. The chief's body was covered in fine gold dust, making him a living, shimmering offering, El Dorado, the Golden One. He then boarded a raft laden with gold and emeralds, and as he reached the center of the circular lake, he would plunge into the waters, washing off the dust as the treasures were cast into the depths as offerings to the gods. This was not about material wealth hoarding, but about reciprocity, a sacrifice to ensure balance, fertility, and favor from the spiritual world. Ethnohistorians like John Hemming meticulously trace how this beautiful, localized ritual was overheard, misunderstood, and wildly inflated by Spanish conquistadors. To ears conditioned by dreams of limitless riches, the story of a golden man quickly spiraled into a legend of a golden city, then a golden empire, hidden somewhere in the uncharted interior of the continent. The sophisticated gold-working cultures of the region, provided tangible proof that fed the frenzy. Their master smiths produced stunning votive offerings called small figures depicting scenes of daily life and ceremony, not as currency, but as sacred objects. Yet to the invaders, this artistry was merely evidence of the vast stores of raw wealth they believed awaited them. The consequences of this literalized myth were catastrophic. It launched a series of futile and brutal expeditions that the landscape and its people. Brother of the conqueror of the Inca, led hundreds of men into the Amazon rainforest in search of El Dorado, an ordeal that ended in starvation, disease, and death. Decades later, the English courtier Sir Walter Raleigh mounted his own costly quest, his obsession ultimately leading to his execution. These journeys were less about exploration and more about a desperate, violent scavenger hunt for a mirage. Modern technology has, in a way, confirmed the ritual's reality while dismissing the mythical city. Attempts to drain Lake in the early 20th century did recover a number of exquisite gold artifacts from its muddy floor, tangible fragments of the offerings made centuries before. Today, scientists use ground-penetrating radar and sonar to scan the lake beds of the region, not seeking paved streets of gold, but seeking to understand the scale and meaning of the actual ceremonial deposits. So, does El Dorado's power come from a dream of abundance or a warning about myth? It is both. It taps into a deep, almost archetypal human yearning for a place of perfection and plenty. But its historical legacy is a stark lesson in the perils of hearing only what you wish to hear, of viewing another culture's spiritual language solely through the lens of material conquest. The real gold was never in a hidden city, but in the sophisticated cultures that understood its value as something far beyond weight or coin. From a golden myth born of water and light, our journey now descends into a very different kind of hidden world, one of darkness, silence, and immense subterranean mystery. Beneath the fairy tale landscape of Cappadocia, with its towering rock spires and cave dwellings, lies a hidden world of astonishing ambition. In 1963, a resident of the town was renovating his home when he knocked down a wall, only to discover a dark passageway descending into the earth. This accidental revelation unveiled one of archaeology's most breathtaking subterranean complexes, the underground city. Carved from the region's soft volcanic tuff rock, this is not a simple cave network, but a meticulously engineered, multi-level metropolis descending over 200 feet deep, with space for an estimated 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food stores, and places of worship. The immediate question it poses is one of profound necessity. Why would an entire community choose to live in perpetual twilight, and what were they hiding from? The scale is almost incomprehensible, featuring 18 explored levels containing living quarters, churches, wineries, stables, and even a school, all connected by a labyrinth of narrow, sloping corridors. Archaeologists studying the site, such as those from the Turkish Ministry of Culture, believe its earliest chambers may have been carved by the Phrygians around the 8th century before the Common Era, but it was likely early Christians, during the Byzantine era, who expanded it into the vast refuge we see today. This was a project born of repeated crisis, a permanent solution to a recurring threat. The historical context of Anatolia is a long chronicle of invasions and conflicts, from Persian expansions to Arab raids beginning in the 7th and 8th centuries, and later, the devastating Mongol incursions. For Christian communities in this volatile frontier was not a home, but a lifeboat carved into the bedrock. Its design reveals a society that had institutionalized the practice of disappearance. The engineering solutions are as ingenious as they are pragmatic. The entire city could be sealed from the inside using massive circular stone doors, each weighing up to 1,000 pounds, that rolled across key passageways like millstones, blocking invaders. Perhaps most vital was the ventilation system, a network of over 50 distinct shafts that channeled fresh air from the surface to the deepest chambers, ensuring those inside could wait out a siege for months without suffocating. Deep wells tapped into underground water sources, providing a secure supply independent of the world above, was not an isolated fortress, but part of a regional defensive strategy. It is connected by a kilometers-long tunnel to another large underground city, and over 200 smaller subterranean complexes are known in Cappadocia, suggesting a coordinated landscape of refuge. This indicates a shared knowledge and a communal plan for survival that spanned generations. The effort involved in carving this space, by hand, with simple tools, represents an investment of centuries. So, what does ultimately tell us? It is a monument not to conquest, but to resilience. It speaks of a community that valued its cohesion and identity so deeply that it chose to literally move its world underground rather than surrender it. The city is a physical manifestation of the human instinct to preserve, to endure, and to maintain a way of life against forces that sought to erase it. It stands as a powerful, silent testament to the fact that sometimes, the greatest act of cultural defiance is not a battle, but a strategic, collective retreat into the earth itself. This profound understanding of the body's environment, of creating spaces to safeguard health, leads us to wonder how ancient cultures approached the health of the body itself from within. The human body has always been a landscape of mystery, pain, and potential. Long before the advent of modern germ theory or imaging technology, ancient healers across the globe were performing acts of medical intervention that seem startlingly advanced. This 16th question confronts a persistent assumption that prehistoric medicine was merely a collection of superstitions and prayers. The evidence, often written in bone and preserved in text, tells a far more nuanced story of observation, innovation, and practical skill. In the high Andes, archaeologists have examined Inca skulls displaying precise, healed holes from a procedure called trepanation, where a section of bone was carefully removed, likely to relieve pressure from a head injury. The smooth, healed edges around these openings are a silent but powerful testimony. They prove the individual not only survived the operation, but lived for years afterward, their body successfully fighting infection and regenerating bone. This was not a rare fluke. Studies of Andean remains show survival rates that many early modern surgeons would have. Paleopathologists like Kate Brown study such skeletal remains, reading the scars and fusions to reconstruct the patient's experience and the healer's technique. They find evidence of successful amputations, with clean bone cuts and signs of healing, and even advanced dentistry, with drilled teeth and rudimentary fillings made of bitumen or beeswax. The tools and texts they left behind are equally revealing. From the ash-preserved ruins of Pompeii come bronze and iron surgical instruments, recognizable as forceps, scalpels, and probes, their design refined for specific tasks. In ancient India, a text compiled around 600 years before the Common Era describes over 100 surgical instruments and 300 procedures, including intricate reconstructive surgery for noses and ears. It details the use of wine and incense fumes as early antiseptics and anesthetics. The pharmacological knowledge was profound. Egyptian papyri list diagnoses and compound remedies, some effective, like honey for its antibacterial properties, and others more symbolic. Healers worldwide utilized a sophisticated herbal pharmacy, employing opium poppy or mandrake root to dull pain, willow bark, a natural source of acid, to reduce fever and inflammation, and a vast array of plants for everything from digestion to wound care. Even suturing had ingenious solutions, using plant fibers, animal sinew, or in some cultures, the pincers of certain ants to close a wound, the insect's body then being twisted off. This practical knowledge was almost always framed within a spiritual or philosophical system, whether it was the Egyptian concept of channels in the body, the Greek theory of four humors, or the Indian doshas. Diagnosis might involve reading dreams or examining the stars, but the treatments that followed were often grounded in empirical observation accumulated over generations. A beautiful illustration of this blend of function and care comes from a tomb in ancient Egypt, where archaeologists discovered a prosthetic toe crafted from wood and leather. It was not merely cosmetic. Its design shows wear and careful shaping to assist with walking, revealing an ancient concern for restoring both mobility and dignity. So, how much practical, effective knowledge was accumulated through trial, observation, and tradition? The answer is a great deal. These ancient practitioners were the first scientists of the body, building a repository of knowledge through careful attention to what worked, even if their explanatory frameworks were different from our own. Their legacy is a reminder that healing is an ancient art, one that sought to mend the fragile vessel of the body with whatever tools and understanding were at hand. This profound desire to care for and ultimately preserve the physical form finds its ultimate expression in a practice that sought to defy decay itself, to prepare the body for a journey beyond time. The linen wrappings are only the final chapter of a much longer story. For over 3,000 years, the ancient Egyptians refined a practice that was equal parts profound faith and meticulous science, turning the human body into a vessel capable of enduring eternity. This 17th question asks how they perfected mummification, a process whose chemical precision is only now being fully understood through modern analysis. It began not with grandeur, but with simple observation. In the earliest periods, bodies buried in the hot, dry desert sand naturally desiccated, preserved by the environment. Recognizing this, the Egyptians embarked on a conscious technological journey to replicate and control these conditions, transforming a natural accident into a deliberate, sacred art. The peak of this practice, seen in the New Kingdom, was an elaborate 70-day ritual orchestrated by priests under the guidance of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming. Egyptologist describes it as a spiritual operation, where every cut and every application carried symbolic weight. The physical process was systematic. First, the internal organs, except the heart believed to be the seat of thought and identity, were carefully removed and placed in special jars. The brain was often extracted through the nose using specialized hooks. Then came the crucial step of dehydration. The body was packed inside and out with natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture harvested from dry lake beds. This was not table salt, but a potent desiccant that drew out all moisture, leaving the tissues leathery and resistant to decay. After weeks in the natron, the body was washed, anointed, and its cavities packed with linen and aromatic materials. This is where modern chemistry has illuminated ancient genius. Using techniques like gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, analytical chemists have dissected the complex balms applied to the skin and wrappings. A landmark 2023 study identified specific recipes of plant oils, animal fats, and tree resins like pine, cedar, and pistachio. These were not chosen at random. Mixtures possessed proven antibacterial and antifungal properties, creating a sterile microenvironment, and formed a hydrophobic, waterproof barrier that sealed the body from moisture and microbes. The final wrapping was itself a ritual, with hundreds of yards of linen bandages applied in a specific order, often accompanied by amulets placed between layers for protection in the afterlife. The entire endeavor was staggeringly resource-intensive, a luxury that varied greatly by social class. While a pharaoh might receive the full, elaborate treatment, a commoner might only be treated with a simple purgative oil and salt before burial. This variation itself reveals the practice's core duality. So, was this mastery driven by faith in resurrection or by empirical science? The answer is that the two were inseparable. The religious imperative to preserve a recognizable body for the soul's return demanded a practical, repeatable result. Through centuries of trial, observation, and refinement, they developed an effective chemical technology to achieve that spiritual goal. Their success was not magic, but a testament to a culture that patiently learned the laws of nature and harnessed them in service of a timeless belief. This profound desire to orient the individual within the cosmos meant that even in death, alignment with celestial forces was paramount. A stone doorway frames the exact point on the horizon where the sun is reborn. This precise alignment, repeated in sacred spaces from Ireland to Cambodia, speaks to a fundamental human endeavor to write our place in the universe into the very ground we walk upon. The significance of aligning ancient monuments is not found in a single purpose, but in a profound cultural synthesis where practical necessity, spiritual belief, and political authority converged. Researchers in archaeoastronomy, like the late, have shown this was a global phenomenon, emerging independently across continents. From the columns of the Parthenon to the towering spires of Angkor Wat, cultures invested immense effort to ensure their greatest creations were in dialogue with the sky. This shared impulse suggests a deep, almost instinctual drive to harmonize human endeavor with the perceived order of the cosmos. The reasons were multifaceted and deeply interconnected. At the most practical level, solar and lunar alignments served as colossal, immutable calendars. The passage tomb of in Ireland is in this function. For just a few minutes at dawn around the winter solstice, a narrow beam of sunlight travels down a long, specially constructed passage to illuminate the inner chamber. This was not a decorative effect. It was an engineered moment of celestial drama, marking the year's darkest point and the symbolic return of the sun's life-giving power, a critical signal for an agricultural society. In the Americas, the grand city of in Mexico presents another layer of meaning. The Street of the Dead, the city's central axis, is not aligned to true north, but is deliberately oriented to the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster. For the people of, the Pleiades held immense significance, its appearance in the sky marking the beginning of the rainy season and the agricultural cycle. By embedding this celestial event into the city's very layout, the rulers were weaving the cosmic order into the daily experience of every citizen, reinforcing their own role as intermediaries between heaven and earth. This legitimization of power is a constant theme. A king or priest who could predict an eclipse or proclaim the correct day for a planting festival derived immense authority from that knowledge. The alignments made that authority permanent and visible, etched in stone for all to see. The debate among scholars often centers on intentionality. How many of these alignments were deliberate, and how many might be coincidental, or simply the result of basic surveying methods using ropes and shadows. The case of the Great Pyramid of Giza offers compelling evidence for breathtaking intentionality. Its sides are aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy of within a fraction of a degree. To achieve this, builders likely used a method involving the simultaneous observation of a circumpolar star's rising and setting points, creating a true north-south line with astonishing precision. This was not a casual decision. It was a statement of cosmic perfection. Similarly, theories about the alignment of the Giza pyramids mirroring the stars of Orion's belt, while controversial, speak to the enduring human desire to see our earthly creations as reflections of a heavenly pattern. So, do these silent stones point to a universal human impulse? They seem to testify to a shared need to find meaning in the predictable rhythms of the sky, to anchor our transient lives within a framework of eternal cycles, and to proclaim that our greatest works are part of a grand, celestial design. This deep-seated desire for cosmic order makes the sudden, violent interruption of such order all the more terrifying, as history is sometimes rewritten not by the steady movement of stars, but by the catastrophic fury of the earth itself. A vibrant town on the island of Thera was a masterpiece of the Minoan world. With its multi-story buildings adorned with breathtaking frescoes of antelopes and fishermen, its sophisticated drainage systems, and its storerooms full of trade goods, was a bustling port frozen in a single, catastrophic moment. Then, around 1600 years before the Common Era, the volcano at the island's heart awoke. This was not a simple eruption. It was a cataclysm of almost incomprehensible power, ejecting over 60 cubic kilometers of material into the atmosphere and collapsing the center of the island into a vast, seawater-filled caldera. The immediate devastation was absolute. Thera itself was utterly transformed, its central landscape gone, replaced by a steaming bay. For the Minoan civilization on Crete, 100 kilometers to the south, the aftermath was apocalyptic. First came the tsunamis. The sudden collapse of the volcano into the sea would have generated waves dozens of meters high, traveling at the speed of a jet aircraft. These walls of water scoured the northern coast of Crete, devastating the very ports and fleet that were the source of Minoan maritime power and wealth. Following the waves came a different kind of deluge, a rain of volcanic ash and pumice. This blanket, inches to feet thick, smothered the island's fertile farmland, rendering it unusable for years and leading to inevitable crop failure and famine. The reach of this event is recorded in the very geology of the region. Deep-sea sediment cores extracted from the eastern Mediterranean contain a distinct, fingerprinted layer of Thera's ash, a silent marker that allows scientists to map the eruption's fallout across hundreds of miles. To understand the global scale, researchers like volcanologist Moai turn to natural archives far from the Mediterranean. Ice cores drilled from the Greenland ice sheet contain minute traces of sulfuric acid from the eruption, trapped in annual layers of snow. By counting these layers, scientists can pinpoint the event to a specific year, aligning it with tree ring records from ancient Irish oaks and California bristlecone pines that show a pronounced period of stunted growth around the same time. This global climatic signature points to a volcanic winter, where the immense volume of aerosols injected into the stratosphere reflected sunlight back into space, leading to several years of significantly cooler temperatures worldwide. This climatic shock would have disrupted growing seasons far beyond the Aegean, creating a period of hardship that stressed agricultural societies across continents. The long-term consequences for the Minoans were profound. While the civilization did not vanish overnight, the eruption delivered a crippling blow from which it never fully recovered. The loss of its fleet and coastal infrastructure, combined with agricultural collapse and likely a breakdown in trade, critically weakened its economic and political structure. This created a power vacuum that the more warlike Mycenaeans from mainland Greece would eventually fill, leading to the cultural transformation we see in the archaeological record. Beyond the physical and political fallout, the eruption may have seeded a deeper cultural memory. The sheer scale of the disaster, an advanced island culture consumed by the sea in a flash of fire and water, echoes powerfully in the later Legend of Atlantis recounted by Plato. While Atlantis is a philosophical allegory, its core imagery of a sophisticated island kingdom punished and swallowed by the ocean likely draws from a primordial memory of real events passed down through generations. So, how does a disaster of this magnitude reshape our historical narrative? It forces us to see history not as a steady, predictable climb, but as a story punctuated by sudden, uncontrollable events that can divert the course of civilizations in a matter of hours. The Thera eruption reminds us that the environment is not merely a backdrop for human drama, but an active, sometimes violent, participant in it. His final moments were spent high in the Alps, a place of stark beauty and sudden violence. In 1991, two German hikers stumbled upon a body partially emerging from a melting glacier, a discovery that would become one of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century. This was the Iceman, a man who lived and died around 5,300 years ago, preserved with astonishing fidelity by the deep freeze of the ice. He is not a skeleton, but a person, complete with his skin, his clothing, and the very tools he carried on his last journey. The questions he presents are intensely personal and forensic, transforming a single individual into an unparalleled time capsule of the entire Copper Age. Who was this man? Why did he meet such a violent end? And what can the intimate details of his life reveal about a world lost to time? The answers have come from a symphony of modern science, where disciplines like genetics, radiology, and chemistry have collaborated to read the story written in his tissues and belongings. The initial assumption was that was a lost shepherd or traveler who froze to death, but science soon revealed a much darker and more complex narrative. A full-body CT scan delivered the first major clue, a flint arrowhead embedded deep in his left shoulder, having severed a major artery. This was not an accident, it was a fatal wound. Further analysis showed a severe blow to the head and defensive cuts on his hands and wrists. The evidence paints a vivid and sobering final scene. Was pursued, engaged in a struggle, shot from behind, and likely bled out on the mountain pass. The presence of blood from 4 different individuals on his gear and clothing, including his own, suggests a violent confrontation involving multiple people. This forensic portrait makes him the world's oldest known murder victim, his death a sudden, personal tragedy that has echoed across 53 centuries. Yet, it is the totality of his preservation that offers a breathtakingly complete picture of his life. Isotopic analysis of his teeth and bones traced his origins to the valley in what is now northern Italy, mapping his movements through the different geologies of his childhood and adulthood. His last meal, preserved in his stomach, was a mix of ibex meat, red deer fat, and einkorn wheat, a hearty, high-energy diet of a man on the move. Even the microscopic world within him spoke. Researchers identified the stomach bacterium pylori in his gut, providing clues about ancient human migration patterns. His health was a ledger of a hard life. He suffered from worn joints, hardened arteries, and intestinal parasites. Perhaps most intriguing were the 61 simple tattoos, groups of lines and crosses on his lower back, knees, and ankles. Their locations correspond to areas of degenerative strain, leading scientists to propose they were part of an early therapeutic practice, a form of acupuncture to manage pain. His equipment reveals a man prepared and technologically adept. He carried a yew-wood bow, unfinished but of fine craftsmanship, a quiver of arrows with flint and bone points, and a flint dagger with an ash wood handle. Most striking was his copper-bladed axe, its haft of yew wood meticulously worked. The purity of the copper was traced to ore sources in southern Tuscany, indicating long-distance trade or travel networks. His clothing was a masterpiece of survival tailoring, a layered system designed for the alpine climate. He wore a bearskin hat, a coat of stitched goat and sheep hides, leggings of goat leather, and shoes of bearskin and deer hide stuffed with grass for insulation. His grass cloak, woven from sturdy alpine grasses, would have served as a raincoat or blanket. Every item speaks of profound environmental knowledge and skilled tool-making. So, does story belong solely to him, or does it illuminate the universal human experience of his era? He embodies both. Through him, we see the individual, a man with aches, a history, and a final, terrible conflict. But through the science applied to him, we see the collective, the trade routes, the medical beliefs, the daily diet, and the technological ingenuity of a world in transition from stone to metal. He is a singular portal into the challenges, conflicts, and quiet knowledge of a time that shaped our future. His silent testimony, preserved in ice, reminds us that history is ultimately composed of individual lives, each with its own story, suddenly connecting us across an immense gulf of time. The stone itself seems to defy its own nature, flowing into impossible, seamless joints. In the heart of the former Inca Empire, from the formidable ramparts of overlooking to the mist-shrouded terraces of, walls stand as a testament to an engineering philosophy that borders on the supernatural. Massive blocks of granite and andesite, some weighing over 100 tons, are cut into complex polygonal shapes and fitted together without a trace of mortar. Yet they join so perfectly that not even the thinnest blade can penetrate the seam. This 21st question asks not just how they built it, but how they thought about stone, transforming a mountain's bones into a language of power, permanence, and profound reverence for the earth. The Inca, whose empire flourished in the Andes for less than a century before the Spanish arrival, achieved a stonemasonry that remains unmatched, a skill so central to their identity that it symbolized their divine right to rule and their sacred bond with the Earth Mother. To solve this puzzle, researchers have turned from speculation to practical experiment. Archaeologist Jean Pierre spent years in replicating the work with tools the Inca would have had. His findings reveal a process of breathtaking patience and tactile genius. It began at the quarry, where stone workers likely used harder stone hammers to fracture the bedrock along natural fissures, freeing enormous rough blocks. The real magic happened during the shaping and fitting, demonstrated that using simple cobblestones as hammers, a worker could gradually dress a stone face, pecking at it to create a pitted, yet remarkably flat surface. For the intricate concave cuts needed to receive a protruding neighbor, they might have used a technique of trial and error, possibly pressing a clay mold against the already set stone to transfer its complex shape onto the new block. The final fitting was a dialogue between stones. Masons would repeatedly lower a new block onto its neighbor using earthen ramps, ropes, and wooden levers, checking the contact. They would then abrade the high points using sand, quartz, or water as a grinding paste, slowly refining the fit over countless iterations until the two faces locked together across their entire surface. This was not a quick process. A single joint in a major wall could represent months of work by a dedicated team. The choice of the polygonal, jigsaw puzzle style was not merely aesthetic, it was profoundly practical. The Andes is one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. A wall made of identical rectangular blocks would have a uniform weakness, likely to crack along straight mortar lines during an earthquake. An Inca wall, however, is a dynamic, interlocking system. During a tremor, the irregular stones can shift and settle slightly against one another, dissipating energy, and then settle back into place without collapsing. This seismic resilience is a cornerstone of why so many Inca structures still stand today, while colonial buildings atop their foundations have crumbled repeatedly. The organizational feat behind this craftsmanship was monumental. The state mobilized thousands of workers through the system, a form of labor tax where communities contributed manpower for public projects. Quarrying, transporting, and fitting these stones required not just brute strength, but a hierarchy of master architects, skilled stone setters, and laborers, all working in concert under the Inca's command. A perfect symbol of this mastery is the famous 12-angled stone in a wall. This single block of dark andesite, with its 12 perfectly planed facets, fits immaculately into a chaotic puzzle of other polygons. It is a display of almost playful geometric confidence, proving that the Inca stonemasons could solve any spatial problem they conceived. So, was this flawless stonework an act of political theater or pure pragmatism? It was the ultimate fusion of both. The impossible walls were a physical manifestation of the empire's unshakable order and divine favor, intimidating subjects and honoring the gods. Yet they were also the most durable, stable, and intelligent solution for building a civilization to last in the challenging Andean environment. The stones were both a statement and a shelter, a prayer and a fortification, carved not just with tools, but with a worldview that saw the living earth as a partner to be understood, honored, and meticulously joined. This immense effort to codify knowledge in stone finds a strange parallel in a far more fragile medium, a scattered library of clay that recorded a world in delicate, cuneiform script. Flames cast a long shadow over the history of thought. The Library of Alexandria was not merely a building, but a dream of universal knowledge, a deliberate attempt to gather every known book from across the Mediterranean world and beyond. Its legendary destruction stands as one of history's most poignant symbols of loss, but the true story is less a single act of arson and more a slow, tragic dimming over centuries. To understand what was lost, we must first untangle what actually happened. The library was part of the larger, a research institute founded in the 3rd century before the Common Era by the Ptolemaic kings of Egypt. It operated on an astonishing principle. According to stories, any book found on a ship docking in Alexandria's harbor was confiscated by scribes, and the copy was returned to the owner while the original went into the library's collection. This aggressive acquisition policy aimed to make the city the intellectual capital of the world. The popular myth of a sudden, catastrophic inferno is powerful, but most classicists, following scholars like, see a more complex decline. The library likely suffered its first major blow during the Civil War, involving Julius Caesar in 48 before the Common Era. Besieged in Alexandria, Caesar's forces set fire to ships in the harbor, and some ancient sources suggest this fire spread to warehouses or buildings near the library, possibly destroying a significant number of scrolls stored there. However, contemporary accounts do not describe the main library building itself being consumed. The institution limped on for centuries after, but it was a shadow of its former self, suffering from neglect, a loss of royal patronage, and the gradual decay of its priceless contents. Later historical episodes are often blamed for a final end. In the 4th century of the Common Era, Christian mobs, encouraged by the Patriarch, destroyed a temple that housed a daughter library of the main collection. This was a devastating blow to the pagan intellectual tradition in the city. Centuries later, after the Muslim conquest of Alexandria in the 7th century, a later tradition claims the Caliph ordered the scrolls burned to fuel the city's bathhouses. Most historians view this story as a later legend, a symbolic tale of cultural conflict rather than a documented event. The library's demise, therefore, was likely death by 1,000 cuts, a prolonged process of attrition through conflict, shifting political priorities, and the simple, relentless fragility of papyrus in a humid climate. The greater, more haunting question is not how it burned, but what burned with it. The potential losses are staggering to contemplate. We know of Greek playwrights like Aeschylus and Sophocles wrote dozens of plays, but only a handful of each have survived. Their complete works, along with those of countless other poets and dramatists, may have filled the library's shelves. The works of pre-Socratic philosophers, men like Thales and Heraclitus who first asked fundamental questions about the nature of the universe, survive only in fragments quoted by later writers. Their original, complete texts, which could reshape our understanding of early Greek thought, are gone. Perhaps most painfully lost are the voices from outside the Greek world. The library actively sought works from other civilizations. Detailed histories of Phoenicia, Babylon, and Carthage, written by their own scholars, may have been translated and stored there, only to vanish. The loss of scientific knowledge is epitomized by one tragic example. The astronomer Aristarchus of Samos, working in the 3rd century before the Common Era, proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system, with the Earth and other planets revolving around the Sun. His work was known at the library, but without a critical mass of copies and institutional support, the theory faded into obscurity. It had to be painstakingly rediscovered by over 1,800 years later, a staggering delay in human understanding. Does the slow tragedy of the Library of Alexandria serve as a perpetual warning? It reminds us that knowledge is not a permanent possession, but a fragile inheritance. It requires active preservation, careful copying, and a society that values the past as much as the present. The library's fate whispers that progress is not inevitable, that brilliant ideas can be erased by conflict, by ideology, or by simple, passive neglect. Its ghost challenges every generation to consider what it is saving and what it might be allowing to silently slip away into the dark. From the echo of lost words, we now listen for a different kind of silence, one etched not on papyrus, but on stone. Their cities were marvels of hydraulic engineering and baked brick, with streets laid out on precise grids and homes equipped with sophisticated drainage. Yet the Indus Valley civilization, which flourished for over 1,000 years across what is now Pakistan and India, left behind a haunting silence. Among the ruins of Harappa, archaeologists have recovered thousands of small, square stone seals, each exquisitely carved with images of animals, mythical creatures, and most tantalizingly, a concise, elegant script. This is the Indus Valley script, a writing system used by a sophisticated urban culture over 4,000 years ago, and it remains one of the world's last great undeciphered linguistic puzzles. We have the text, but we have utterly lost the language, making every seal a locked door to a lost world. The script itself is a study in elegant minimalism. Inscriptions are almost always very short, typically just 4 or 5 signs in length, and appear most commonly on these small steatite seals, though they are also found on pottery, copper tablets, and a few other objects. Experts have around 400 distinct signs, a number that suggests it was not a simple alphabet, but likely a system, where some signs represent whole words or concepts, and others represent syllables. The real barrier, the monumental challenge that has thwarted decipherment for over a century, is the absence of a bilingual text. The stone provided the key to Egyptian hieroglyphs because it presented the same decree in 3 scripts, including known Greek. For the Indus script, we have no such parallel text, no known language to use as a translation bridge. We are trying to solve a complex equation with too many variables. Linguists have dedicated entire careers to this labyrinth. His work involves meticulous statistical analysis, studying the frequency and position of signs, looking for patterns that might indicate grammatical rules. One prominent theory, based on the geographic distribution of later languages and some structural analysis, proposes that the underlying language of the Indus civilization belonged to the Dravidian family, a group that includes modern languages like Tamil and Telugu spoken primarily in southern India today. Researchers using this model attempt to match sign sequences with reconstructed Dravidian words for concepts like ruler, merchant, or star, but these remain highly speculative without corroborating evidence. The very nature of the inscriptions adds to the difficulty. Because they are so brief and appear primarily on seals, most scholars believe they served an administrative or commercial purpose, perhaps denoting the name of a merchant, a clan, a title, or the contents of a shipment. This is practical, label-like writing, not the long, narrative texts like epic poetry or royal chronicles that could provide the rich, repetitive context needed for a breakthrough. Imagine trying to reconstruct the English language and all of Western culture solely from reading a collection of modern-day corporate logos and short product labels. The task seems almost insurmountable. Modern technology has entered the fray with new tools, but not yet a solution. Computational linguists and computer scientists have applied artificial intelligence algorithms to the corpus, using pattern recognition to group signs that frequently appear together, suggesting possible word boundaries or grammatical classes. These studies can confirm that the script shows structure and rules, that it is a true writing system and not just random symbols, but the software cannot magically reveal the meaning. Other approaches look at the script's possible evolution, searching for connections to later writing systems in the region or analyzing the pictorial origins of the signs themselves. For instance, a sign that looks like a fish might, in a rebus principle, stand for the sound of a word that means fish, or it could be borrowed to represent a different word that sounds similar. Yet without knowing the sounds of the language, this path is a guessing game. So what truly hangs in the balance? If we could one day read these crisp inscriptions, would they simply confirm what archaeology already suggests? A society meticulously organized around trade, craftsmanship, and civic order? Or would they shatter our assumptions, revealing a rich literature, complex laws, or spiritual hymns that would force us to completely reimagine this ancient culture? The silence of the Indus script is a powerful reminder that a civilization's inner voice, its thoughts, stories, and laws, can be the most fragile artifact of all, vanishing when the link between symbol and sound is broken. This profound mystery of stored information and potential energy leads us to consider another ancient artifact, one that seems to hold a different kind of silent power, a power that curiously resembles a very modern invention. A clay jar from ancient Mesopotamia holds a secret that quietly hums with modern possibility. Among the artifacts unearthed near Baghdad in the 1930s was a simple, fist-sized vessel of yellow clay, dating from the Parthian or Sasanian period around 250 years before the Common Era to 650 years after. Inside, however, was an arrangement that seemed anything but ordinary. A rolled copper cylinder was sealed into the jar with asphalt, and within that cylinder sat an iron rod, isolated from the copper by another asphalt plug at the top. To the German archaeologist who first studied it, the assembly looked eerily familiar. It bore the basic components of a galvanic cell, a primitive battery. When he proposed this idea, it sent a ripple of excitement and skepticism through the scientific world, posing a timeless question: was this an ancient device for generating electricity? The proof of concept lies in its simple chemistry. If the jar were filled with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or fermented grape juice, a chemical reaction would occur. The acidic liquid would interact with the two different metals, the iron and the copper, causing electrons to flow from one to the other through the electrolyte. This creates a weak electrical potential, a voltage. Modern experiments with precise replicas have confirmed it. The setup can produce just over 1 volt of electricity, roughly the same as a modern AA battery. This is not a theory, it is a reproducible physical fact. The mystery, then, is not whether it could generate a current, but whether its creators knew that, and more importantly, what they intended to do with it. The proponents of the battery theory, suggested a practical, even industrial application. The most cited possibility is electroplating, the process of using electricity to coat a base metal with a thin layer of a more precious one, like gold or silver. The idea is compelling. Artifacts from the region, including some from the much earlier Mesopotamian periods, show objects plated with incredibly fine layers of gold, a technique that has often puzzled archaeologists. Could a bank of these clay jar cells, connected in series to increase their voltage, have provided the gentle current needed for such delicate work? In the 1970s, a German Egyptologist claimed to have done just that. He built a replica of the Baghdad cell, used a grape juice electrolyte, and reported successfully electroplating a small silver statuette with a layer of gold. While his experiment is often cited, the details and documentation have been questioned by other researchers, leaving his results intriguing but not definitive. The skeptics, however, raise powerful counterarguments rooted in archaeological context. If these were batteries used for a widespread practice like electroplating, where is the supporting evidence? No wires, electrodes, or electroplated objects clearly linked to the Parthian or Sasanian eras have been found alongside these jars. The few jars discovered were isolated, not found in groups that would suggest an industrial battery bank. This absence leads many archaeologists to propose more mundane explanations. The most straightforward is that these were simply storage containers for sacred scrolls. The iron rod could have been a spindle around which a precious papyrus or parchment was rolled, and the copper cylinder served as a protective case, with the asphalt seals keeping the contents safe from moisture and pests. Similar sealed vessels have been found containing scrolls elsewhere. Another theory points to a ritual or medicinal purpose. The ancient world was full of practices that blended the physical and the mystical. The jar could have been used in a form of electrotherapy, where the mild tingling sensation produced by the weak current was interpreted as a magical or healing force. Alternatively, it might have been part of a temple display, a sacred object whose hidden inner mechanism was symbolic, not functional. So, where does the balance of evidence lie? The artifact exists in a tantalizing middle ground. It demonstrates that the chemical principles for creating electricity were physically present in the ancient world, a fact waiting to be stumbled upon. Whether that stumble led to a conscious technological application, or whether the device was built for an entirely different reason and its electrical property was a happy accident, remains shrouded in the dust of two. This leads us to a reflective point. Does the Baghdad Battery represent a fascinating technological dead end, a spark of insight that never caught flame, or is it evidence of a sporadic, practical understanding of electrical principles that flickered in and out of knowledge long before, and Volta gave it a name? Its quiet power lies not in providing a clear answer, but in challenging our assumptions about the linear progression of discovery, reminding us that the seeds of modern ideas might have been planted, forgotten, and rediscovered many times over in the rich soil of the ancient world. The final piece of this ancient puzzle was not found by scholars, but by the blade of a plow. In 1999, two men with metal detectors on a wooded hill in Germany uncovered a disk of corroded bronze, its surface gleaming with unexpected gold. They were looters, and their find, the Sky Disk, would soon be recognized as the oldest known concrete depiction of the cosmos in the world, a masterpiece that instantly rewrote our understanding of the European Bronze Age. This single object, dating to around 1600 years before the Common Era, fuses the practical and the sacred into a portable map of the heavens. Its very existence asks a profound question: was this an advanced astronomical instrument, a powerful religious icon, or a seamless fusion of both that gave its keeper authority over time itself? The disk is a symphony in bronze and gold. Against a dark blue-green patina, gold symbols speak a silent language. A cluster of 7 stars almost certainly represents the Pleiades, a star group of immense importance to ancient farmers across the northern hemisphere. Its appearance and disappearance in the night sky marked critical turning points in the agricultural year, signaling when to plant and when to harvest. A golden crescent moon arcs beside a large, round orb that could be either a full moon or the sun. Most enigmatic of all is a graceful, curved shape along the bottom edge, widely interpreted as a solar barge, a mythological boat believed to carry the sun across the sky or through the underworld, a concept found from Egypt to Scandinavia. The true genius of the disk, however, lies in the 2 golden arcs added later along its rim. Archaeologist Meller, who helped recover the disk and has studied it extensively, explains their function. These arcs precisely mark the angle between the sunrise and sunset points at the summer and winter solstices at the disk's latitude in central Germany. This transforms the object from a simple star chart into a sophisticated, adjustable calendar. By aligning the disk with the horizon, A knowledgeable user could determine the solstices, and thus the correct time for seasonal rituals and agricultural cycles. This was not merely an observation, it was a material encoding of abstract celestial knowledge into a durable, holdable object. The disk's own history is written in its modifications. Scientific analysis shows it was altered in several phases over perhaps 200 years. The original version likely featured just the star cluster and the moon. Later, the two solstice arcs were added, and later still, the solar barge, before the disk was finally taken out of use and buried. This evolution suggests its meaning and function grew over generations, adapting to the needs of the community that guarded it. The sophistication extends to its craftsmanship. The bronze was made from ore mined in the Austrian Alps, and the gold is traced to the mountains, evidence of far-reaching trade networks. The inlay technique, where the gold symbols were pressed into the bronze, shows a high level of metallurgical skill. This was no folk art, it was a treasure of immense value and complexity. Its power likely resided with a single individual or a small elite, perhaps a priest-chieftain. In a world where knowing the correct time for planting and ceremony meant the difference between prosperity and hardship, controlling this knowledge was a source of immense social and spiritual authority. The one who held the disk literally held the sky in their hands, mediating between the community, the cycles of nature, and the gods. So does the sky disk show that astronomical knowledge was materially encoded to bridge the practical and the sacred. It stands as definitive proof. It represents a moment in human history when deep observation of the cosmos was forged into a physical key for unlocking both earthly survival and celestial meaning. It is a perfect emblem of the ancient mind, which saw no division between calculating the seasons and honoring the divine forces that governed them. With this final object, our journey through 25 timeless questions comes to a close. We have stood before silent stones and deciphered lost scripts, traced the fallout of global disasters, and marveled at pocket-sized computers. Each mystery, from the Great Pyramid to this starry bronze disk, is more than an unanswered riddle. Together, they form a grand, interconnected tapestry, revealing that the ancient world was not a simpler place, but a different one, operating on a logic where science, spirituality, and story were inseparable threads. These enduring puzzles do not highlight our ignorance, but rather illuminate the boundless depth of human curiosity. They remind us that history is not a closed book, but an ongoing conversation between the past and our relentless drive to understand. Every new technology, from satellite imaging to genetic sequencing, offers a fresh lens, promising that future generations will look upon these same enigmas and see wonders we cannot yet imagine. The greatest lesson they leave us is this: the human story is infinitely richer, more ingenious, and more mysterious than we often dare to believe. Our ancestors were not primitive, they were pioneers, gazing at the same stars and asking the same fundamental questions about who we are and our place in the cosmos that we ask today. Their legacy is not just in the monuments they built, but in the timeless urge to seek, to build, and to wonder that they passed down to us. That is the true treasure, and it remains, like the stars on the disk, forever within our reach. The enduring power of these mysteries lies not in their resistance to solution, but in their profound resonance. Each one acts as a mirror, reflecting back not just a forgotten past, but our own modern worldview, our own assumptions about what ancient people could know, build, or believe. We look at the Great Pyramid and instinctively ask how, with an emphasis on tools and labor, because our industrial age values mechanics. The Minoans vanish, and we search for a single catastrophic cause, a preference for clear, dramatic endings over the slow, complex unravelings that more often shape human history. These puzzles persist because they force us to confront the limits of our own imagination, to admit that the past operated on a different set of logics, where the line between a temple and an observatory, between a king and a god, between a battery and a sacred vessel, was beautifully, fundamentally blurred. Science, far from solving everything at once, is the engine that keeps these questions alive and evolving. Every new tool is a new kind of key. Satellite imagery reveals lost cities beneath jungle canopies, not by digging, but by reading the subtle differences in plant growth. Genetic sequencing extracts stories from the plaque on ancient teeth, tracing migrations and mapping family trees across. Lasers fired from aircraft can map an entire Mayan metropolis in days, creating a three-dimensional model that would have taken archaeologists a lifetime to survey by hand. Each technological leap does not simply provide answers, it reframes the questions, offering finer detail and raising new, more nuanced mysteries. The discovery of a hidden chamber in a pyramid does not tell us what is inside. It asks us, with renewed urgency, to wonder. This dynamic process ensures our understanding is never final, but always provisional, always open to the next discovery. What truly captivates us, however, is the fertile ground where hard evidence meets the human need for story. This is the frontier between data and myth. The factual eruption of Thera provides a plausible geological anchor for the legendary lost Atlantis. The historical reality of a ritual, a man covered in gold, ignites the fantastical dream of a city paved with it. These mysteries thrive in that shimmering space, where a kernel of truth is wrapped in layers of meaning, aspiration, and fear passed down through generations. They satisfy a deep craving in us, the desire for a past that is not just a catalog of pottery shards and carbon dates, but an epic narrative filled with genius, hubris, catastrophe, and resilience. Engaging with these questions is, therefore, a profound exercise in intellectual humility. It teaches us to weigh evidence, to hold multiple theories in our minds at once, and to accept that sometimes the most honest answer is we do not yet know. This process connects us directly to the people we study. The awe we feel standing before Stonehenge at solstice is not so different from the awe that motivated its builders. The curiosity that drives a linguist to stare at the undeciphered Indus script is the same spark that led a scribe to first carve those elegant symbols 4,000 years ago. We are linked across time by a shared capacity for wonder, for asking why, and for striving to leave a mark that outlasts the self. So, what is the ultimate lesson carried within these 25 timeless questions? It is that history is not a static monument to be visited, but a living, breathing conversation. The past is constantly speaking, in the alignment of stones, in the composition of bronze, in the silent grammar of an unread script. Our role is to listen, with every tool and every ounce of imagination we possess, and to respond with thoughtful, ever-evolving understanding. The journey does not end here with the final mystery on a list. It begins anew with every sunrise that illuminates an ancient doorway, with every new technology that lets us see the invisible, and with every generation that picks up the thread of wonder and continues the search. The true legacy of these enigmas lies not in their answers, but in the questions themselves. Our journey through 25 timeless mysteries reveals a profound truth. The ancient world is not a closed book, but an open invitation. Each puzzle, from the pyramids to the manuscript, underscores the breathtaking ingenuity, the intricate complexity, and sometimes the heartbreaking fragility of human civilizations. While modern science has peeled back countless layers, using lasers to map lost cities and genetics to trace ancient journeys, the core of wonder remains untouched and potent. This enduring curiosity is the engine of discovery, a constant reminder of how much there is still to learn, and how often a single find can rewrite everything we thought we knew. These questions collectively teach us a vital humility before the past. They demand we shed the arrogance of the present and approach our ancestors not as primitive figures, but as ingenious problem solvers who mastered their environments with the tools and worldviews they possessed. We learn respect for their capabilities, whether it was moving 80-ton stones across an island or calculating planetary motions with gears of bronze. This respect translates directly into the urgent importance of preserving our fragile shared heritage. For every site looted or manuscript lost, is a chapter of the human story erased forever. It is crucial to understand that these mysteries are not failures of knowledge. They are not gaps in the record to be lamented, but beacons. They guide scientific inquiry toward new frontiers, forcing us to develop better tools and ask sharper questions. They fuel our collective imagination, connecting us across through a shared sense of awe. The historian Daniel captured this perfectly when he observed, "The greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge." These ancient, stubborn puzzles exist to shatter that illusion. They stand against certainty, whispering that the past is always more nuanced, more creative, and more surprising than any textbook can contain. So where does this leave you, the viewer? The invitation is now yours. We encourage you to dive deeper. Pick one question that resonated most, whether it is the fate of the Minoans or the purpose of the Baghdad Battery, and follow its thread. Read the latest research, explore the competing theories, and let your own curiosity be your guide. Then share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. What mystery captures your imagination and why? If you have enjoyed this journey through time's greatest puzzles, please subscribe. There are always more hidden corners of history to explore, more stories waiting in the stone and silence. Thank you for watching, and above